Hi, this is Marcus Curtis from Marcus Curtis Music, and today we're going to talk about routing as it relates to the Behringer X32 Producer. Now, this information will work on any Behringer X32 you happen to own, but we are using the X32 Producer, and I will explain the differences as we move along here. Now, people have requested this information from me, so this video is being made by request. And one of the problems that people have is when they're coming from an analog mixer into a digital situation, a digital mixer, the learning curve is steep and there's a lot of things that people struggle with. And one of the things that people struggle with is routing. So this is going to be all the basics of routing. We're going to explain the terminology, we're going to talk about what routing is and how it works, and we're going to start right now. Okay, so on the back of the X32 Producer, you'll see we have 40 hardware inputs and outputs. I have 16 XLR inputs. I have 8 XLR outputs. The last two, 7 and 8, are reserved for the mains. I have 6 actually auxiliary inputs and 6 auxiliary outputs. I have monitors outs as well. There's a talkback mic. And basically what routing is I can take any one of these inputs that I want and route it to any output that I want. That's basically routing in a nutshell. But it doesn't end there. I have my audio interface section right here and a USB port that leaves from the audio interface and goes into the computer. That's an additional 32 channels in and 32 channels out added to the 40 inputs and outputs that are hardware related. Now, in addition to that, we have something over here called the AES ports. We have an A and a B. And each one of these, you can hook up external hardware like these stage boxes. And you can have up to 96 additional inputs just using the stage boxes. And then we have something called an Ultra port, which is right here. And the Ultra port basically allows you to hook up monitoring systems like the P16 hardware device, and you'll find another 16 outputs for your monitoring with the Ultra port as well. So you can have a number of inputs and outputs externally hooked up to this thing, and then you can route just about any input to any output you want. Okay, so what Behringer does is it takes all the inputs and the outputs on the back of the mixer and it arranges those inputs and outputs in groups of 8. And this is reflective on the mixing board. We have 8 inputs right here on this side and 8 outputs on this side over here. Okay, so these are groups basically. And down the right-hand side are our group buttons. This is groups, channel groups 1 through 8, channel groups 9 through 16, channel groups 17 through 24, and channel groups 25 through 32. So basically groups of 8 going all the way down. And the thing to know is that this mixing board is actually separate from the inputs and the outputs. So the first channel group we're on, 1 through 8, can control the first 8 inputs of the mixing board, but it's not tied to the first 8 inputs of the mixing board. If we want to, channel group 1 through 8 can also control the 9 through 16 inputs on the back of the mixer. So it can also control the audio interface, and it can control 8 channels from the audio interface. So we're not tied to this first channel group being the first 8 inputs on the back of the mixer. It can control anything we want, okay? And the other cool thing is that each channel group has its own fader memory, okay? So we're on channel groups 1 through 19. I'm going to adjust it accordingly. Channel group 9 through 16. Let's do this a little bit differently. Channel groups 17 through 24, if we want, okay? Each channel group has its own memory, so we're going to do channel group 25 through 32, okay? Okay, so now when we click on that particular channel group, you will see the faders adjust accordingly. Now these are inputs. We're not tied to the inputs just being on this side. We can also have the inputs on this side. And the way you do that is you just hold down the first channel button and you hit the next channel button. And now we have 1 through 8 on this side, and we have 9 through 16 on this side. We can also do it like this. Here's 1 through 8. And 17 through 24 if we want. We can do 1 through 8 and 25 through 2 if we want. If we want, we can do 9 through 16 on this side and 17 through 24 on this side. Or we can do 25 through 32 on this side. Or we can do it like that if we want to. So even though this will control the outputs, it can also be set up to control the inputs as well. So think of the mixer as being independent of the inputs and the outputs on the board. To access the routing menu on the Behringer X32, all we have to do is hit the routing button and the menu comes right up. Looks kind of intimidating, it looks kind of complicated, but it's really not that hard to understand. Okay, we're on the input section. As you can see, the yellow box around the word input is kind of a dead giveaway there. Okay, if you want to control other sections of the card, maybe some of the output sections, okay, you use the cursors here and you just tab over to the areas you want to control. Okay, so we're going to go back to the input section for a little bit and we're going to focus on that for a little while. Okay, so now we have 5 columns here, as you can see. We have 1 through 8, they're labeled at the top here, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, 25 through 32, and auxiliary in. Okay, so if we look to the left of our mixer, you will see our channel buttons or channel groups over here. Okay, so here's channel group 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, 25 through 32, and auxiliary in. Okay, each button has its own column. See, that's pretty easy to understand, right? We're going to focus on channel group 1 through 8. We're going to use this as our example. Okay, so let's go back over to our menu. Okay, so channel group 1 through 8, that's this first one right here. Let's say we want to use this to record to control our audio interface. All we would do is scroll down. The first 8 channels of the audio interface comes over here. It says card, that's our audio interface. And we go ahead and click on that, and now we're controlling the first 8 channels on our USB card. Remember, our USB card has 32 channels in and 32 channels out. Okay, so now we're using this to control 8 channels on our USB card. And there's 2 kinds. There's the X USB and it's the X Live. I have the X Live card. So what we're going to do now is go back up to where it says local and highlight that. And now we're controlling local 1 through 8. Now, local references the XLR inputs that are on the back of the mixer, the hardware inputs. Okay, so the X32 Producer has 16 XLR inputs. The X32 has 32 XLR inputs. So the Producer only has 16. That's why when we come down here to where it says 17 through 24, and if we hit that, we're not really going anywhere. You notice that it's in parentheses. It's in parentheses because those hardware inputs aren't on the back of this mixer. Okay, so we can only control the 16 inputs that are built back here. Okay, so let's go down to AES. AES basically references the ports on the back of the mixer, the stage boxes. So you can plug in stage boxes and control those inputs and outputs. Most stage boxes have 16 inputs and 8 outputs, and this is where you would access the inputs on the stage box to control them. There's a side A and there's a side B. There's 2 different ports. And you can daisy chain them together and hook up a total of 6 boxes, which will give you 96 inputs that you can control. But you have to have that external hardware, and nothing like that is hooked up at the moment. Okay, so now let's look at outputs. Okay, if we tab over one, we're on the AES side A, and these are the outputs of the AES boxes. Okay, since nothing is hooked up, this doesn't really reference anything. It's not going anywhere. And tab over one more time. This is side B. It's the side B port. Okay. Tab over one more time. Card is a USB card. It's the audio interface. This is the expansion card outputs. Okay, so basically what we control with this is if we're recording into the DAW that's on the computer, we use this to select what we want to go into the DAW. Okay, and then tab over one more, and here's our XLR art outputs. Now the Behringer Producer, X32 Producer, has 8 outputs. The Behringer X32 has 16 outputs. Okay, so we tab over one more and we get 2 patch points. Okay, so you see our outputs, our XLR outputs right here. You notice 9 through 16 have asterisks. The reason why there's asterisks here is because these outputs are not in the back of the mixer. We can still do some creative routing and use these, but for other things, but there's nothing built into these outputs. So right now they're not being used. That's why there's an asterisk there. Okay, so we tab over one more time in our patch point section, and we're on our auxiliary outs. Okay, and we tab over one more time. And these are P16. This is referencing our ultra port. Our ultra port in the back, you can plug a P16 into there, and you can use that as a monitoring device. P16 has 16 outputs. As we scroll down, you could see. But because we don't have a P16 plugged into here, we don't really need it for anything. And then the next thing, tab over one more time, and we're on user. User allows you to do point-to-point routing. You can break away from the traditional 8 groups and do creative routing any way you want. It's kind of advanced, so maybe we'll do another video on that or touch on that a little bit later. But for now, we're just going to continue our basic routing, and we're going to start with a few different scenarios so you can see what we're doing. So we're going to start with the inputs here. Okay, I have a cord Triton plugged into channels 13 and 14 on the back of my X32, and I have a Yamaha XS7 plugged into channels 15 and 16 on the back of the mixer. I have some demo songs called up in each keyboard. I'm going to play these demo songs, and we're going to talk about routing in a little bit more detail. So let's start playing the songs. Okay, as you can see, channels 9 through 16 is in channel group. This is in the second channel group here. Okay, so let's go over here to our second channel group, and as we press 9 through 16, there's the meters for our keyboard. Raise the mains a little bit. Here is our cord Triton. Okay, here's our Yamaha. So this is our second channel group, 9 through 16. Okay, but what we can do is come up here, like so. And we're going to change this. We're going to change our second channel group. I'm going to make that 1 through 8. And we're going to change our first channel group and make that 9 through 16. So now when we come back down here, we don't have anything in the meters, but when we hit our first channel group, 1 through 8, there's our keyboards. Again, here's our chord. And here is our, and there's our Yamaha. Okay, I have a looper plugged into auxiliary channels 1 and auxiliary input channel 2. And this is a song I recorded a while back, and it's not a real fancy song, it's just for demonstration purposes. Let's go ahead and play the song right now. So now the song is playing. So we're going to go over here to our auxiliary inputs. Okay, you can see over here. And all I have to do is press the auxiliary button. And you can see in our meters. Just go ahead and bring them up a little bit. You can hear the song. Okay, so far so good. We understand the input section of the mixer, but let's say we want to use these inputs to record on our computer or in our DAW, okay? Let's say, for example, we want to use the 6 auxiliary inputs on the back of the Behringer to record on the computer, okay? Fairly simple to do that in routing, actually. We're going to go to routing, okay? And then we're going to go over to where it says card. Now in card, we'll use the first group, 1 through 8. Now these are the expansion card outputs, okay? They're not related to this over here. It's just the expansion card outputs. This is what goes into our DAW application. So all we have to do is take our first group, which is what we're using here. We're going to scroll down. We're going to keep going until we get to auxiliary 1 through 8. Now we have 1 through 6 actually. So we have monitor and we have TB. We'll go ahead and use the TB. Click on that. Okay. So now I'm going to hit play on my looper, start that same song again. Now you can see there it is on the inputs. Okay. And as we come over here to the computer, I don't know if you can see that or not. Let's see if we can see that a little bit better. We'll zoom in. And you can see the first two inputs are going into the computer. Okay. So watch this. And I'm going to take these auxiliary inputs and move them over to 3 and 4. Hit play on the computer again. Now we're using inputs at 3 and 4. And there it is. Okay. Hit the play button again. And now we're getting signal from auxiliary ends of 5 and 6. If we come back over here to our auxiliary input, we can see here is 5 and 6. Turn it up to hear it. So let's take a look and see what the routing is for this. Okay, let's talk about routing as it relates to the Behringer app. Okay, so we see a little bit of signal coming in here. If we go down to the auxiliary inputs here, we can see signal is coming into channel 1 and channel 2. I have the looper plugged into channels 1 and 2, and I'm playing a song that is looped. Okay, so let's go over to the routing, and I'm going to bring up the routing map. And as we look at it, we can see on our input section, it's similar to the one that's on the mixer, except for everything is turned on its side. Here's channel groups 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, 25 through 32. Our fifth column that we see on the mixer is actually down here. Okay, so what we're looking for and what we're concerned with really is the card section. So to get to the card outputs, we click up here to get to the card outputs. Now these card outputs are routed directly to our DAW application. So whatever input we select on our DAW application is going to be directly related to how we have this section configured. Let me show you what I mean. So we'll go down to Cakewalk, call that up, and we have a project open. As you can see, we don't have any inputs selected. And what we're going to do is bring up our routing menu. Okay, so in our routing menu, you could see that we have outputs 1 through 8. So in this first example, what we're going to do is we're going to select auxiliary end 1 through 6T. Okay, and as we select that, now we have channel groups. Channel group 1 through 8 going through auxiliary in 1 through 6. Okay, so now when we come over here to our input selection, we're going to select that and go down and select driver 1 or left 1. Okay, and then we're going to come down here to our second channel and select right 1. Now the way this is routed, this is actually channel 1 and channel 2, but odd numbers are left and even numbers are right. So instead of saying channel 2, it'll say 1 right. Okay, that can be confusing, but that's how it works. Now when we arm these channels for recording, you can see that we have input signal that comes directly from our auxiliary ends right here. This signal is now routed to our DAW application and we're ready for recording. And there's different ways that we can configure this, and let's cover that right now. So when we go over here to our routing map, what we'll do is we'll move back over. So on this section right here, local 1 through 8. That means any of the XLR inputs 1 through 8 can be routed to the DAW application now. But what we're going to do is take outputs 9 through 16 and move that over to auxiliary in 1 through 6T. Okay, so now when we come down here and we go to choose our input, we have to go to left 9 because we moved to groups 9 through 16. Select that and notice our signal comes right in. Down here on the right, our right channel here, it's the same thing. It's 9 right, which is actually channel 10. I know this can be confusing, but basically whatever channel group you have selected in here is going to be reflective of how it's routed in our input section of our DAW. And that is the purpose of the card outputs. That's how that is routed. Okay. Okay, so basically to record music onto your computer using a DAW application, your inputs have to be routed through your card and your card outputs are routed into the DAW. Now let me show you how that works. Basically, we hit the routing button and we see local 1 through 8. That tells us that our first channel group 1 through 8 is controlling our first 8 inputs. Okay, so when we scroll over to the card, we have to set 1 through 8 up to receive local 1 through 8. So now, as we play through the first 8 channels, we're routing the output of the card into the DAW application. So now we can record from the first 8 channels on this card. Okay, so if we're in this group here, 17 through 24, okay, we can scroll down if we want to because it's in parentheses. We don't have these hardware inputs on the back, but we do have the auxiliaries. So we can scroll down to until we get to auxiliary in, highlight that, auxiliary in TB. We're going to bypass the faders and that kind of thing. And now our auxiliary ins are being fed through our card output into the DAW. So this is what you would use to send signal from the Behringer X-32 Producer to your DAW application. Okay, so I have a project now opened up in Cakewalk, and I want to play it back and have it go through the Behringer mixer. Okay, now everything is funneled through the main out, and the main out is just stereo going through channels 1 and 2 on the mixer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start playback. And now the project is playing back. So in order to hear it back, let's go to routing and see what we need to do. Okay, so we're going to pull up routing, and we have local 1 through 8. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go down until we get to, we're on the input section, by the way. We're going to go down until we get to card 1 through 8. And you can see our meters. If we go over here, you'll see our meters. One through 8. We'll just go ahead and lift it up. And there's our song. Okay, let's go ahead and turn that down a little bit. We're going to change the routing again. We're going to go up here to routing, and we're going to change this back to our inputs 1 through 8. And we're going to take our next channel group, and we're just going to take that down to card 1 through 8. Now, as we go over, you'll see we have to select our next channel group. There it is. And we can just raise it up, and there it's going to be on 1 through 8. course, this is example works on the other two channel groups as well. You know, real quickly, if we wanted to do, channel group 17 through 24, if we wanted to go down that, make that the card. We go over here. Let's see, 17 through 24. And there it is. So the problem with this is every time we do this, we're using up 8 channels. Let's go over here and I'll show you a solution. Okay, so instead of burning a group of 8, we're going to go up here, back to where, let's see where that is. And we're going to use our auxiliary ins, and we're going to scroll that down until we get to card 1 and 2. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and go over here to our auxiliary inputs and just raise it up a little bit. Anytime you play back audio from your DAW application or Cakewalk and you bring it back to your X32, you're going to lose a bank of 8 channel groups. Okay, so we're on channel group 1 through 8. Okay, and say you want to listen to the audio back, go down to the card and hit the card, you're going to lose 8 channels in this channel group right here. Okay, so if you have an X32 that has 32 inputs, you're going to lose 8 of those inputs. Okay, so the solution would be to take your auxiliary ins, scroll down till you get to card 1 and 2. Click on that. So now you've lost the first 2 auxiliary ins. Okay, and that's being used to play back the audio from your card. Okay, now this is really not a big deal if you have a producer, because if you have the producer, all you would need to do really is to take your 17 through 24 channel group. You can come down here if you want to and click on 1 through 8, then go back up to your auxiliary ins. And there you go, you're good to go. And then you can take this channel group here, 25 through 32, down to the next set of inputs if you want to. See card 9 through 16, for example. And you're good to go. Now there's parentheses around here because our card configuration, if you remember, click on this and you go over here. And our card configuration is set up to 32 in and 8 out. You'd have to change this to 32 in, 32 out to actually have access to those inputs. And to do that, you just kind of scroll up. Now you got all 32 inputs working. Okay, so if we go back to routing, you notice that the parentheses are removed from the card here. So we can use 9 through 16 or whatever we want to do. Okay, if we go over here to the card, okay, now this local 10 through 24, 17 through 24, we're not using those for anything. We can take this down to our auxiliary and use this to record our auxiliary ins. Okay, let's cover routing when it comes to using a stage box. This is a Behringer SD16. It has 16 inputs and it has 8 outputs, and it has 4 alternate ports down the side. If we turn it on this side, you can see here's our on and off switch and our power out. We spin it around the other way and we can see this is how we connect it to the Behringer mixer. And you can hook 3 of these up together. So this would be plugged directly into the mixer, and then we can daisy chain 2 more boxes together. The USB out is for firmware updates only, so we can plug this into our computer and do a firmware update on the box itself. We have this dim switch on the side that allows us to configure the 3 boxes when they're hooked in series. If we hook 3 in a row, we can separate them by using this switch right here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to connect this to our mixer. Okay, we can see our power light tells us that the unit is on, and then we have our AES inputs, A and B. So the green light tells us that we're on side A. If we're on side B, this light here would be turned on. Okay, so I'm plugged into channel 1 of our stage box. That's our SD16 Behringer stage box. Okay, we're going to address routing real quick. We got the app up. So in the app, we're going to click on the routing button and our routing map comes right up. You can see down the side here on the left-hand side is our channel groups 1 through 8, channel group 9, 16, 17 through 24, and 25 through 32. Over here are the local inputs. Now in the Behringer X32 Producer, we don't have the hardware inputs 17 through 24 and 25 through 32. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use channel group 17 through 24 and 25 through 32 to route the box. And it's fairly a simple procedure. I'm just going to go over here and click on 1 through 8 over here in side A, because we're plugged into side A on the stage box. We'll go ahead and click on the recording side and do it over there as well. Okay, so now the first 8 channels of the stage box is routed through channel group 17 through 24. So we're going to go ahead and close that out. So we're already here on channel 17, as you can see. And if I play on the guitar, you can see some signal coming in. I can turn it up. You can see that we actually have signal coming through from our stage box. Okay, so let's say we want signal to go into channel 4 of the stage box. So I'm going to unplug from channel 1. I'm going to plug in to channel 4 of the stage box. Okay, and now we're going to play. And notice we're over here on channel 21. Okay, even though it's channel 4 of the input of the stage box, it's channel 21 because of the way we have it routed. If we go to channel 8 itself, that should put us on our 24th channel. Okay, so here we see we're on channel 24 right now. So let's change the routing here a little bit. We're going to go to routing again. This is the channel group we were using. We're going to go ahead and switch that back real quick. And now we're going to take channel group 25 through 32, and we're going to put that in the first 8 inputs of our Behringer box here. And do the recording side as well, close that out. So now, since we're still plugged into channel 8, we should come down into channel 32 here. Even though we're in channel 8 of our stage box, our routing will place us through channel 32. Okay, so let's go ahead and play. So I know this can get kind of confusing, but basically the inputs can be routed to whatever channel groups that we want, as we already have seen. So it can get kind of confusing when you're dealing with all these separate inputs and what channel groups these inputs are routed to. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on routing again, and now we're going to mix things up a little bit more. What we're going to do is we're going to take channel groups 25 through 32, and we're going to route them to 9 through 16. And then we're going to go ahead and take 17 through 24 and route them from 1 through 8. Just like this. So now, even though I'm in channel 8 of the Behringer, I will be coming out through channel group 24. Now, if I take my guitar, I'm going to unplug it now. I'm going to plug it in to channel 16 of the Behringer box. You can see here I come. So there I am right there in channel 32. So what I'm going to do now is unplug from channel 16 of the box, unplug into channel 1 of the Behringer box, so we can explain how to route when you're recording music. Okay, so what we're going to do is click on our routing button, and our map comes up again. So we have our inputs selected, so we can hear, when we plug in, we can hear the guitar. Okay, so what we need to do is go to the card selection right here. Now, we only have 16 channels on the box, so only these 16 channels are going to work on the outputs of the card. These are not going to work. You can try them all day. You're not going to get them to work, okay? So what you're going to do is take channels 1 through 8, go over here to where it says the AES, and you're going to click on there. Now, if you were on the B side, if your box was plugged in on the B side, you would click there. But since we're on the A side, we're clicking there. Okay, so here's 9 through 16. I'm just going to click there. Now any channel we plug in on the stage box will be routed to the card, so we can record directly on the card. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll bring up Cakewalk, and we have the track already installed here. So we're going to go down here, X Live, and we're going to, let's see, we're in channel 1. So we're in channel 1 here, and we're going to arm it for recording, and let's see if we have signal. So as you can see, not only can we route from the stage box into the mixer and hear it live, we can also record from the stage box into our DAW application. That's going to be all for this video. I know routing can be confusing, but hopefully this takes some of the mystery of routing away. We just covered the basics. Routing can be a lot more complicated than what we covered today. Okay, but this hopefully will point you in the right direction. Now, if you like the information that's in this video, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That really helps me out. And if you want to be notified when future videos are made, go ahead and click the bell notification. But as always, thank you for your support and thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.